So page 192. Page 192, we talk about human rights and fair housing. I regret to tell you, you do need to know some of the years that we talk about in this chapter. First thing you should know is 1866. That shows up quite a bit on the state exam. 1866 is the Civil Rights Act, more specifically of 1866. It prohibits any type of discrimination based on race or color. Know that? Just know it. Okay. Then 1968 is the next most common thing that they test on. Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968 provides that it is unlawful to discriminate based on all the things you're used to: race, color, religion, national origin, when selling or listing residential property. As far as years go, 1974, an amendment was added that added sex or gender as a protected class. Physical disabilities was added along with familial status. That was added in 1988. Next paragraph, landlords must make reasonable accommodations for the disabled. Read through the next paragraph on your own. Prohibited activities are described at the bottom of 192. As you read some of these, if you want to, if let's say you have free time and you want to Google Western New York violations of the Civil Rights Act or of the Federal Fair Housing Act, it'll blow your mind to see how many people, and I mean like companies that have apartment complexes that maybe you've lived in or live in right now. It's like there's, when I research and I see this, I'm like, wow, I can't believe that this place got in trouble. Like I know these people, or I know of them, or I know people that have lived there. So, and you're forever online on the internet, like you've got a violation like that. And we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars in fines, especially these big complexes. So you don't want to do anything here. You don't want to, you want to dot your I's and cross your T's and make sure you treat everyone the same. Don't you dare say that a property is not available when in fact it is, because you don't like the people for any reason. Everyone's got to be, you got to follow the same criteria for everyone and document everything. Don't cut corners when it comes to following the Federal Fair Housing Act. It is not worth the penalties. You shouldn't even be in the real estate business if you're discriminating. You shouldn't be. Page 193, we talk about really important terms that show up frequently on the state exam. Blockbusting. That's when you call people in a neighborhood or you go to a neighborhood and you scare them into listing with you, and you say it's under the guise of the purple people are moving into the neighborhood and property values will drop. Oh, then I'm going to list with you and get it sold before that happens. That's illegal. A cease and desist order is a directive from the Department of State that says that you cannot contact homeowners in particular areas. This happens as a result of real aggressive real estate people. This happens a lot in Westchester County and downstate New York. I've never seen a cease and desist order in upstate New York, but I've seen many in downstate, and there's still some that are currently in place right now. Know the definition of redlining. These are state exam favorite questions. Redlining is that illegal practice that lenders used to have a map, and they would use like a red marker and they'd circle areas and say, don't lend here and don't lend there. Because if you do, well, it turns out that those were heavily minority occupied areas. So it was discriminatory. So that's illegal. No redlining. Realtors don't really redline. It's a bank thing. It's not the olden days. This is still happening. They got in trouble from the state of New York, whoever that bank is over there. They got in trouble for redlining maybe 8-9 years ago. It goes back a little ways, but that's not ancient history. In real estate, anything that happened less than 10 years ago is still pretty current. It's not like the olden. Like if it's 20 years ago, that's old. Okay. Steering is another term you want to be familiar with. Steering is that illegal practice of taking purple people and you take them to show houses in other neighborhoods where purple people live. You know, you don't decide where people live. You let people tell you what they're looking for out of a neighborhood, maybe a certain school district that they're looking for, maybe they need to be on a bus line. You know, these are the things that you have to find out. You don't want to look at a person and say, oh, well, you're purple, so you probably want to live where the purple people live. They can tell you that, but you can't make that decision. We talk about advertising guidelines and enforcement at the bottom of 193. Make sure to read through that. Exemptions at the top of 194. I would give that a cursory review. Usually, New York will not test you on exemptions to laws. Like, they would rather you almost don't know those things. But it turns out that when you have a real estate license, you lose most exemptions. Like, you can't discriminate under most any circumstances as a real estate agent because you have that license. That you kind of give up some of your freedoms. But read that through, just so you're aware of that. Top of page 195. A person charging that discrimination has taken place may initiate a private lawsuit and also lodge a complaint with the Department of State if the person offending has a real estate license. So that's no fun, but it happens. A complaint may also be filed with the New York State Division of Human Rights within a 1-year period. There's real specific statutes of limitations that apply too at the federal and the state level. So look for that as you read through this material. There's also sexual orientation addressed under certain municipalities. We address them here, and you should have a following chapter 1 of your textbook. Following chapter 1, you should have a thing called Hot Off the Press, and we have a whole section in there that we'll be covering one of these evenings as well. That covers hot off the press, and those are all the changes that occurred since like last July of 2019. Okay, so you want to, but you don't need to know what towns have a sexual orientation law that's part of it, or any of the nuances of various municipalities. You don't need to know that for test purposes, because the exam that you take for your real estate license, it's like for the whole state. They don't want you to know specific. Anything that applies universally to the whole state is what you're going to be tested on. So bottom of 195, a complainant does not have to prove specific intent, but only the fact that discrimination occurred is what matters. So you don't have to intend or not intend. Your actions is what can get you in trouble. The second last paragraph of page 195, we talk about testers. And even though we don't hear a lot about it, testers used to be people that the state would send out. But then there's organizations like HOME, H-O-M-E, Housing Opportunities Made Equal, and other kind of organizations, nonprofit organizations that will, if a person feels that they were discriminated against, they can contact HOME, and then HOME will pretend to be a renter. And there's a real good video that's actually included as part of the item that we sent you in advance. And the gentleman changes his voice to sound like every type of nationality you could imagine, and then sounds like a typical Caucasian, whatever that sounds like. And then all of a sudden the property is available. So it's a real good little video. So make sure you watch for that. Just 2 pages left. Page 195A and 195B. We talk about new advertising rules. And when we say new, okay, it's 6 years old, but they're very significant. So you want to read through this, and you want to be real careful too, because there's rules for teams and how you advertise them and the rules that apply. So you're going to watch for that. You want to make sure that you don't place ads in such a way that it looks like you're the principal broker. Your advertisements can never be superior in size to that of your broker. Because sometimes people do that, and it's like, if the public is ever confused about, well, wait a minute, is it Susie Smith Real Estate or is it ABC Real Estate? Like, it's important, okay, that you can't be superior in size or prominence in the ad. So things like that are covered on page 195, A and B. Talk about business cards, and also on 195B, we want you to know that web-based advertising is treated no different. Like, you might have a mistake on your website at some point and you take it down and you think, okay, well, I got it down. But that's forever online, especially if you're getting something from the state. or someone is investigating you or something, they already have what they need offline. So don't think it's gone forever. Don't make it worse for yourself if you're ever audited by the state as a result of a complaint that's filed against you. Okay? And that's all. That's all we have for this evening. So